Hello and welcome back to our cottage garden. We thought we would give you our monthly garden tour, but before we get started we just wanted to say a huge welcome to anyone that's new here, as we've had quite a surge of new subscribers joining the channel, which is amazing, so welcome. Let us know where you're from in the comments. We'd love to get to know you a bit, and I hope you enjoy the tour. So far the weather has been very rainy, and I know people all across the country have been struggling with slugs, so the ducks have been quite active eating the slugs for us, and we've been really lucky that the damage hasn't been too bad. They've got a few of our sort of younger seedlings, but everything else has been okay, fingers crossed. But it's something that we've been cautious of anyway because it's been so rainy. The other thing that is potentially due to the bad weather is a really concerning lack of pollinators around the garden. So this time of year you tend to see lots of bees and butterflies. We have a huge buddleia bush which is normally covered in butterflies, and I've only seen 2 on there in the last 3 days, which is really strange. Same with the lavender, normally that's covered in bees on a day like this, but there really aren't that many about this year. So if you've noticed the same thing, do let us know, and we are assuming it's something to do with the change in weather patterns, but kind of scary because we need the pollinators to produce food and keep the gardens alive. We also have a couple of smaller updates for you. So an exciting thing that I did this month was get a new hot bin for the garden. So a hot bin is a composter that you can put food waste into and make lovely compost for the garden in a really short space of time. They are quite expensive, so we got it secondhand on Facebook Marketplace for £40, which was amazing. I think normally they're £200 or £300, so quite a big investment. We did have one already that we've been using for 5 years, but it just wasn't enough, so now we've got 2 on the go. I've been anxiously checking it every day to see when the temperature is up in the green zone and we can add our food waste and get making some new compost for the garden, so I love that. We've also had some bad news, unfortunately, this month about our ducks. So if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that we've got 3 ducks. We've got Waylon, Abby and Coco. We've had a really bad year for things going wrong with them, and normally they're really easy pets, but this year has just been really unlucky. So last week we found out that our duck Coco has a tumour in her foot and leg, and it's inoperable basically. So the vet sent us home with some painkillers to see how she gets on. We're kind of keeping our fingers crossed that the vet is wrong and that maybe it's a benign sort of lump that might fall off, but time will tell. But really not a good year for the ducks this year, unfortunately. Coco seems really well and happy and normal at the moment. She's still going about her everyday activities, and she's eating and swimming and enjoying the company of the others, so please keep your fingers crossed for more of the same, and hopefully she will be okay. So there you go, not too many updates this month, but we do have lots in flower that we're going to show you now. If you like these videos, please do subscribe, and you can help us reach our next goal of 100,000 subscribers. We will get a plaque from YouTube if we reach that goal, so we're really excited to get there. So please do subscribe if you like the content. This month I've also been learning some new video editing techniques so I can capture and share beautiful things from the garden. I've been taking some classes on Skillshare, which is the largest learning community for creatives. There are thousands of courses led by industry experts in things like gardening, photography, editing, illustration, watercolours and so many more. Skillshare is a great resource whether you're advancing at work or just exploring a new creative passion. If you're keen to really delve deep into a topic, there are learning paths with sequential class collections to really master a specific skill. I've been making YouTube videos in Adobe Premiere for a couple of years now, but there's still so much for me to learn. I've been following a learning path called Level Up Your Video Editing with Adobe Premiere Pro, and it starts with the basics of video editing and then moves into more advanced topics like animations, colour correction and audio editing. The first 500 people to use the link in the video description will get a month's free trial of Skillshare, so go ahead and give it a try. So here in the lower part of the garden, we've got some lavender in flower at the moment, and this variety is Hidcot. I planted these when we first moved in as plugs, and they were the smallest plugs you've ever seen in your life. They were about 3 centimetres, really tiny. I think I planted 4 of them. 3 of them have survived and done really well, and then last year I had to pop another plant in a gap where one of them died. But they're lovely things, and they're really usually they're adored by bees. There's a few bees on them now, hoping it will pick up over the next few days, but they are looking really pretty at the moment, and they have a really beautiful smell as well. You can also see our wisteria in front of me is a gorgeous limey green colour at the moment. It's putting on a lot of growth this time of year, so I'm out here with my secateurs trying to keep it in form, but really happy with it. And it's a plant that's really loved by caterpillars. I can't remember the name of the moth variety, but it's got red and yellow dots on its wings, and it's really pretty. And it's such a vigorous plant, it can handle being eaten by caterpillars, so it's nice to know that it's supporting the insects. We've also got the lamb's ear plant behind me, and this is another one that I planted when we moved in, so about 5 years ago. Inexpensive and beautiful, and I love the texture of the leaves. They're really soft. I also love how tall it is when it flowers, and again it's popular with the bees. I can see a bumblebee on there now. Behind me is still a work in progress with the new yew hedges that I'm putting in. So I think I've put 28 or 26 in so far, and I've got 4 more to go, but it's quite a big job, and because I've been poorly this month, I haven't finished it. I was also waiting for the roses to finish flowering before I move them, and I know you're not supposed to move roses in the summer, but I just want to get the hedge finished. But it's all coming together, and I can't wait to get those last few hedges in and complete the screen to cover that fence, and then hopefully this will feel more enclosed within a kind of natural space rather than having those ugly fences in the background. There's also lots of daisy type flowers around us, so the taller ones are the ox-eye daisies, and technically they're a weed. They self-seed around quite vigorously, but I think they're really lovely, and I welcome them into the garden. We've also got the erigeron on the steps below me that's flowering at the moment, and I've been spreading the seeds around to help it spread. And then we've got a few plants of chamomile that I've just filled the gaps with. It's something that's really easy to grow from seed, so I'm really happy to see those flowering now. I think I sowed the seeds for them about 3 years ago, so it has taken a little bit of time, but it's all coming together. Still a bit of work in progress, but it's nice to see things that you put in years ago finally giving a reward. In the background behind me we also have some mallows. That's those pink flowers. I bought quite a lot of mallows a couple of years ago, but sadly they don't like a frost, so we have lost most of them, but there are a few left in the garden, and the one behind me is a good example. We've got some sneezewort as well, which is this really long, it's a really tall flower with white kind of umbelly heads on the top. And this, I actually bought one plant from Great Chalford Manor when they had a plant sale, and it takes so well from cuttings that I've now got maybe about 20 different plants of this in the garden, and it spreads really well too. So that's one that you'll see more of as time goes by, but I haven't really formally designed this bit yet. It's something that I do want to do once I've finished the hedges, but I'm happy with what's here at the moment. But now let's move up the garden and I can show you the progress on our new border. So in the second tier of the garden, this is the newer border that I've recently planted up, and it's getting ready to flower. So what we have in the front of this border are some echinacea plants, some Alchemilla mollis, which is another plant I love the texture of. It's got really soft leaves, and then these beautiful frothy yellow flowers on top as well. Echinacea is getting ready to flower, but not quite flowering yet. We've got some asters in the middle and towards the back, and these are various types that I've bought from different nurseries and plant sales. Got the yarrow here, the hydrangeas, which are coming along nicely. I can't wait for these to get really big in a couple of years' time and provide a bit more structure. At the back, we've got the new yew hedges as well. One thing I have noticed in this border though is there is a lot of yellow loosestrife that's popping up, and I didn't knowingly plant this, and I know it can be on the invasive side, so please do weigh in if you've got this in your garden whether or not I should leave it or get rid of it. Apparently it's really good for the bees, and there is one specific type of bee that this plant supports, so I'm tempted to leave it in for them, but also not sure. I don't really want it to crowd out the other new plants in here, so let me know if you've got that in your garden. I know in the States it can be particularly invasive, whereas here I think it's less bad. A few other things I've got in here. I moved one of our climbing roses, so this rose is called James Galway. It was in too deep shade before, so I've moved it to this side where it can have a little bit more light, and already it's thanking us for it with some really lovely flowers. My plan is to scramble it up this plum tree here, and it's just a small small climber rather than a really aggressive one, so it should be manageable and should be really, really lovely as that one grows into place. I've also put some perennial sunflowers at the back, and I bought these from a garden sale, again, that I found on Facebook Marketplace. So hopefully this will look really lovely when we show you around next month, but I wanted to show you the progress because it's really exciting. And then on the other side, we've got deeper shade, and our hydrangeas on the other side are flowering really well this year. Last year they weren't that impressive, but they're definitely having a good year this year. Again, on the other side, haven't finished the yew hedge, so I think I've got 2 more to go in at the back there. And both sides are framed by our damson trees, which are really lovely, but it looks like the harvest is going to be kind of on the medium side this year. It does fluctuate. Looks like they're not ripe at all yet, so it'll probably be another couple of weeks until we can harvest those, but hopefully we'll have enough to make a big pot of jam, which is what I love doing in the summer. In this part of the garden, we've got some lovely things going on at the moment too. So we have this big hebe shrub that's flowering at the moment, really lovely purple and white flowers. And this is a shrub that was here when we moved in and I couldn't work out what it was. And this year I've realised that it's a hebe, so that's really cool. Didn't really realise they could get that big because when I've planted them before, they've been much smaller. And then I recently added these hostas to the bed in front of me as well. And in the long kind of term, this was the bed that was full of bamboo and took us ages to clear out. I grow daffodils here in the spring, so that's really lovely, but there were some gaps. Last year I tried to grow Japanese anemones in here, but for some reason they all died, so we're trying again. We've got these lovely hostas given to us by a family member, and they were really, really healthy, and I've actually divided some of them because they were so big in their pots. So we've got more hostas to add around the garden, but this is where I started, and I've popped a few more echinacea plants in here as well, just because we had space. And then we've got the geraniums at the front, which went in last year, and they seem quite happy, so I'm really pleased with how they're coming along. Next to me, I've been using this cutting patch for vegetables, so you can see we've got some courgettes here, and this is where we've been really, really lucky with the slugs. I think the ducks help us a lot in this immediate area, so that's good. We've got 2 courgette plants with yellow courgettes. We haven't harvested any yet, but there are a couple of tiny ones on there, so it won't be long. Lots of French beans to fix some nitrogen back into the soil. We've also got some nasturtiums in here. These ones have a really gorgeous blue leaf. It's a new variety to me, and they are really, really lovely. I'm happy with those. We've got some Cavolo Nero, and then I did chuck in a butternut squash plant, but it's so small, I'm not sure whether we'll see any fruit from it this year. Might not have enough time before winter. I do usually show you around the roses this time of year, but because it's been raining so much, we've missed most of them. So hopefully when we get a second flush on the repeat flowering roses, I can show you those. We've got 3 old-fashioned varieties that only flower the once, so I've left those now, and they'll grow some rose hips, which will be good bird food over the winter. I thought we would stop here and look at the borders because the clematis is currently in flower. So this is Clematis Blue Angel. This is the oldest clematis plant we've got in the garden because this went in just after we moved. So I think it's about 5 now. And I've been amazed how much growth it's put on. I cut this back at the start of every spring down to about knee height. And normally it will come up to about here, but it's gone an extra metre this year, so I think it must have a really good root system under the ground. There's another plant here that's slightly smaller. I think it's in a bit more shade, so it's not quite as vigorous, but I really, really love this one. The rest of these borders are kind of wild, and to be honest, I'm longing for a bit more structure in here, and I think it's on my long-term to-do list to sort these out. I think there's a lot of small, nice plants in here, but there are a lot of gaps, and I think what I'd really like is a few kind of big plants and less of a jumble. But that's cottage garden fashion, isn't it? Everything gets chucked in a happy muddle, and that's kind of what's going on. So we've got the oxeye daisies, again, just a weed, but I really love them and they are quite good for the wildlife, so I welcome them in. This side is a little bit shadier than that side there, so we've got slightly different plants on either side. So over here we get a few more foxgloves, we've got some ferns. The campanula does really well on this side for some reason and not on that side. So that's the tall white flowers that look like bells. Again, more geraniums, some echinacea that's waiting to flower. But I would love to get in here and tidy it up a little bit and maybe make more of a formal plan and move things around, because I think it does look a little bit messy, even though it's quite lovely and wild. I think that's the thing about gardening, especially in a cottage garden style. There's always a tension between complete wilderness and then some element of control. And right now I feel like it's leaning a little bit too far away from control, so I want to bring it back in just a little bit. On the opposite side we've got some Californian hyacinths, which I planted as bulbs 5 years ago, and I'm not the biggest fan of these. I think I put them in because they were available in our local shop. They seem to have taken really well. They look a bit like agapanthus but on smaller stems, and they flop over a bit more easily. I don't love them and I'm thinking about taking them out, but in isolation they're really lovely. I just think they're a little bit too vibrant for the kind of colours that I really like. I love soft colours and pinks and really soft purples, but they're very vibrant. The perennial sunflowers are well and truly on their way on either side, so we can see those probably next month, which is really exciting. And last year I started some hollyhocks from seed. They were fig-leaved hollyhocks, and I've popped a few of them in the borders here, and we can see them flower for the first time, and they're such a gorgeous colour. They didn't come with a prescriptive colour on the packet, but they're all coming out as soft kind of dusky pinks, which is my absolute favourite, so I'm really pleased with that. And again, you'll see loads of sneezewort popping up around these bits of the garden because it's where I've put the cuttings. We've got a couple of roses in here as well, and I'm looking to get a few more just to bulk these borders out. In our last video we had a few questions asking about one of the plants in this border as well, and it's gone to seed now, but it was an angelica plant. The flowers look a bit like alliums and the plants themselves are really tall. They're biennial, so they tend to put a low growth on in the first year and then shoot up in the second year. Sometimes short-lived perennial, so we might see it again next year. But the really cool thing about these is you can eat the stems, and traditionally they would have been candied in a similar way to rhubarb. They're a lovely pink kind of stem. We didn't eat it because we wanted to see what it looked like, but it's definitely something that I would grow again in the garden. That's more or less what's going on with our flowers at the moment, but now let's move to the food because we are approaching the main harvest window in the garden, so it's a really exciting time. So we're in the polytunnel, and you can see I haven't really kept on top of pinching out the tomatoes. I probably need to come in here and do a bit of TLC, but everything's thriving and looking really healthy, which is great. I have seen a few people online saying that their tomatoes have got blight already, so I'm on the lookout for it, but hopeful that it won't be a problem yet. We've had some really lovely fruit harvests already this month from our raspberry canes on the outside of the tunnel and the tayberry cane that are on the edge of our perennial vegetable garden. We've also had some strawberries, which we grow close to the house to stop rats and mice from eating them. So that's been really lovely. We've also got a peach tree in the greenhouse where the agaves are, and I planted it in there because it's a self-pollinating variety, so it doesn't matter if the bees can't get in or out. We had our second harvest from it, so we planted it 2 years ago. We had like a lovely basket full of maybe about 13 peaches. They were really tasty, and we had some cherries as well from the dwarf cherry tree that I've got in the tunnel here. And because cherries are so popular with the birds, I netted the ones that we want to keep, so I just used a bit of string to tie on some net. But I think next year I'd like to use those little gift bags that you get that are made of netting, just because they're less likely that a bird would get tangled in them, I think. Not that we had any problems with it this year, but I just want to be careful. I left some cherries on there as well for the birds because I know I've got a blackbird that comes in here and helps with the pest control, and I thought it would be nice for it to have a little treat, and they definitely got eaten, so I think it probably loved those. In the tunnel at the moment you can see the tomatoes are picking up, and I am a little bit cautious as to how well they're going to do with the lack of pollinators at the moment. Some of them have started fruiting and they're looking quite good, but I'm a little bit cautious whether we're going to get good tomatoes this year. But you can see I do a lot of companion planting in here, so we've got the nasturtiums all over the ground, and they've actually started climbing the tomato plants, but they look really lovely, vibrant orange flowers, and you can eat these as well. They're a great companion plant, but you can have them in a salad. I've also got chamomile along the edge here, and this is a perennial companion plant that I use, harvest the flowers to make tea from, but I think it's just really beautiful, and it's also a way of attracting pollinators into the tunnel, and once you've got the pollinators in, they'll help with things like the tomatoes. The grapevine is putting on amazing growth this year, and I'm so pleased to see that. I'm not sure if we're going to get any fruit from it. I really would like to. It's a variety called Red Suffolk, and it's a dessert grape, and it doesn't have any seeds in, so it should be quite nice for snacking. But I bought this as a cutting in the pandemic, so it's going to be, as the years go on, something that reminds me of that time, but also how amazing it is to grow something from the tiniest cutting to have it become so big. I'm really pleased that we've got this in the tunnel. We've also got a courgette plant at the front here, another yellow courgette which has just started growing some fruits, so really looking forward to picking those. But this corner of the tunnel here I love, when you have a polyculture of just random things growing together, and it looks so happy and healthy and complementary, and none of it's been attacked too badly from pests either, so you can see that it's really quite resilient when you grow lots of things together. On this side I've got our cucumber plants, and I think the variety I'm doing this year is Market More. It's been a while since I've sown the seeds, so I can't accurately remember, but I think that's what it is. And I've got some parsley in the areas where the soil seemed a bit poorer, and they've got quite a big deep taproot, so I thought they would be happy in the areas of poor soil. I will add some peas into the gaps just to help keep the nitrogen fixed into the soil, and I've been feeding everything with homemade comfrey fertiliser that I make in the water buds. So it's quite self-sufficient in here now. It will water automatically on the new irrigation system, which has been amazing, and then I'll pop in here every week or two with some homemade comfrey feed just to top up the nutrients. So hopefully next time we show you around we'll have some tomatoes to show you. Keep your fingers crossed, and keep your fingers crossed for the pollinators as well. Here in the perennial veg garden, things are kind of ticking over, but it's very wild, and this time of year I'm definitely struggling with keeping on top of weeding, especially with things like bindweed, and everywhere I stop and look I can see things that need to be pulled out. So I've definitely got some work to do up here, but the asparagus is looking really good, the perennial kale is really healthy, just need a bit of time to do some weeding, and in the orchard behind me the figs will be ready soon, so hopefully next time we show you around we can harvest those too. But thanks so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed having a look around today, and please do subscribe if you'd like to see how our cottage garden develops over the coming months.